the show, everybody. Well, the news just doesn't get any better for the embroiled Prince Andrew. After giving up his royal titles yesterday in disgrace, tonight it gets worse. The Mail on Sunday is now reporting the Met Police is potentially embroiled in the scandal. Prince Andrew allegedly asked his taxpayer-funded Met bodyguard to investigate Virginia Giuffre and dig up information. Shocking stuff. GBNews, of course, have reached out to the Met Police, who have declined to comment. We've also reached out to Prince Andrew, who has not replied. Perhaps his emails aren't working at the moment. We are now joined by the royal historian and co-editor of Burke's Peerage World Orders of Knighthood, Rafe Heidelman-Koo, and Peter Bleksley back in the studio to talk about that Met story. But we'll come to that in just a second, Peter, because, Rafe, I want to ask you, this is such a massive story for this country because the royal family is an institution that's lasted almost 1,000 years. We're about to celebrate it in 2066. And, of course, they've survived worse than this before. But the implications at this moment in time for Prince Andrew and what that means to the royal family are quite severe. British people are wondering, what am I paying for this man? And how can the royal family recover from this?
Well, as you've seen, look, this new Mail on Sunday story breaking today proves that Prince Andrew, if you're a journalist or a tabloid journalist, is the gift that keeps on giving, which is great for people in the media. It's a nightmare for the royal family. And in the royal family, you can understand the frustration and the despair in the royal household. You know, just as soon as you think you've finally closed the door on the Prince Andrew saga, it flings open again and there's yet more. And we've had in short succession, just in the last few weeks, you know, we've found out that perhaps he was not telling the truth about when he last saw Jeffrey Epstein or last communicated with him. He said he wanted to play again soon with him. We've got the memoirs of Virginia Giuffre coming out very soon, which are further going to shed light on all sorts of things. And also, of course, he's even got himself linked to the Chinese spy scandal enveloping the Labour government, having met with this Chinese spy master, who was the same character who met with one of the people who was charged with the spying thing. So it's only natural, I think, that the royal family need to create as much distance as possible. We're told that Prince Andrew has willingly decided to give up these titles. Of course, we know full well this came by order of the King in consultation with Prince William. It should be said, though, that he hasn't lost these titles. He still remains His Royal Highness. He still remains the Duke of York, Earl of Inverness, Baron Killie, Knight of the Garter and the Royal Victorian Order. So he still could actually be further humiliated, and there could be a further step if more stories like this come out, where, as opposed to just simply not using the titles, he could suffer the indignity of being formally stripped, something that normally happens only to people who've committed treason or have fought for enemy countries.
Well, indeed, and as you said, this memoir, Virginia Giuffre's memoir, is going to be coming out very soon, so I suspect there'll be more on that. I speak to journalists like Daphne Barrack, who, of course, been working intensely on this story, and she feels there's more to come. I'm sure she knows there is. But, Peter, I just want to come to you very briefly about this part of the Met being allegedly embroiled in it. Of course, the story is that Prince Andrew used his Met bodyguard to investigate, allegedly, Virginia Giuffre. How damaging would this be if the Met are found to be embroiled in this?
Well, the facts as laid out by the headline in the newspaper, and we'd need to get behind that headline and be made privy to a lot more detail. If those facts as the headline lays them out, it would appear that there has been a conspiracy to commit misconduct in public office, insomuch as that if Prince Andrew did ask a close protection officer to access, say, for example, public systems to see if they could obtain any information, that would fit within that kind of context.
Indeed. And how would the Met release this to the public? Would this be some sort of investigation that would have to be opened and then the public might find out that's where? What sort of processes would have to go into it?
Every keystroke leaves a trace, but of course that's depending on how long ago the systems are accessed, if they're still maintained, if they haven't been sent to the bottom of an ocean, for example. So, if there is a possibility that any such databases can be debriefed and evidence can be gathered, then I'm sure the pressure on the Met will be huge to try and do that.
Indeed. Rafe, I want to come back to you about Prince Andrew himself, because, of course, he still has Royal Lodge. What does that mean, first of all, for people who obviously aren't aware of it? And what would it take for him to not have Royal Lodge anymore? I think many people will be asking.
Well, Royal Lodge is a grand property on the Windsor Windsor estate, 30 rooms. It was formerly the home of George VI and the Queen Mother when they were Duke and Duchess of York. It's where the young Princess Margaret Elizabeth lived for a little bit. He's got a very long lease on that property going into the 2070s, so he has every legal right to live there. The King, of course, wants to move him out into perhaps Frogmore Cottage, which was vacated by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, far smaller, doesn't require any security because it's already within the royal compounds. So the King has cut off all the funding for Royal Lodge, the security and the Prince Andrew's allowance. Where Prince Andrew is securing the money to carry on living there, to pay for his security, his lease also requires him to look after the building. That costs millions. We don't know about that. The best thing for the royal family would be if Prince Andrew now follows the example of his great uncle, the Duke of Windsor, who lived his life in exile in France. We know that Sarah Ferguson loves Switzerland. They've had properties there before, perhaps a future in Switzerland. He even has use of a palace in the UAE, given to him by the royal family there whenever he should need it, the royal family of the UAE. So there are options for him, but I think, a period in the wilderness or a decent honourable exile would be the best path of action.
Is there a danger, though, given his roles in government before as an ambassador and many other things, that he would be privy to many state secrets, I presume, given his position in the royal family. Is it dangerous if we actually push him out of the United Kingdom? Could he sort of chatterbox away to our enemy states, perhaps? I mean, we see, as you've correctly noted, the Chinese tried to get close to the man. Is he sort of a bit of a national security risk at this point?
Well, there's a question around his funding and his financing. We know that he, and certainly also Sarah Ferguson, enjoy the pleasures of life, and there have been questions raised in the past when he was a UK Trade Commissioner in terms of he was accepting great gifts. He was also organising meetings, allegedly, for some of his business associates. So just questions do arise around all of that. But, this was a man who served his country very well in the Falklands War. He was willing to lay down his life for Queen and country then. I say now is the time when he has to understand the interest of the monarchy comes first. He needs to make a similar sacrifice and put king and country before his own ambitions.
Do you think there's a fair criticism that people are saying that the monarchy are actually behind on this, that they should have anticipated the story was coming, they should have, many people will say they probably knew this story was coming and it was going to get worse, and they should have acted sooner before the public outrage burst open? I
think they've done enough. I mean, I think the King has taken much more draconian steps towards his brother than Queen Elizabeth II did, because we know Prince Andrew was a beloved son of hers. We know Prince William, of course, has a very frosty relationship with his uncle, and certainly will be pushing to take even more drastic action if it's needed. And if Prince Andrew is still alive when Prince William becomes King William, well, then I think you will certainly see an even harder stance being taken.
Indeed. And Peter, just a final word on this Metropolitan Police part of the story. Of course, we'll wait for more information. I don't want to speculate too much because the police do a fantastic job. But it is hard looking after a royal family member because they are commanding. They have got great stature. Do you think that it's reasonable to ask public servants to really behave themselves and not carry out orders pushed by someone as senior as Prince Andrew? Could it ask the question of this balancing act that the police have to find?
The detectives that protect royalty and the most senior politicians, the plainclothes one, are renowned for being absolute paragons of discretion. There's never been a kiss and tell book from somebody who was significant in that role. Minor players have tried to make a fortune, but nobody significant has ever gone down that route. The uniform branch of protecting them has been a much more leaky bucket with a much more checkered past. It will be interesting to see if Prince Andrew approached a police officer, who it was, if that officer wants to tell the truth, and perhaps is there a wider conspiracy?
Yeah, indeed, that will be very interesting, and perhaps it could just be the case that officer turned around and said, no, I'm not doing it, right? So we'll wait and see. We'll pass judgment when we know all the information. Rafe, Peter, thank you both very much for joining me on this segment.